Welcome to The Hidden Load for the educators and leaders in medicine who hold everyone up. We will tackle the hard topics and help you conquer your chaos and get to calm, all by starting to acknowledge and remove that hidden load. This podcast is a space for us to name the things that are common but not normal. Each week, we'll look at the invisible weight you're carrying and explore practical coaching-based tools to help you find more calm, better boundaries, and a sense of purpose that doesn't require you to run on empty. I'm so glad that you've carved time out for yourself today. Let's get into the episode. Welcome back to The Hidden Load. I am Dr. Santina or Tina Wheat. I am a family physician, an educator, and a career and life coach who's primarily dedicated to helping healthcare professionals who are trying to build meaningful careers without losing themselves in the process. And today, I want to talk about something that is quieter than workload. It's quieter than that inbox volume. It's quieter than the staffing shortages, and even quieter than that never-ending to-do list that most of us carry. But it is just as powerful. The question I want to talk about is this: whose version of success are you chasing? Not what does success look like, not how do I become successful, but whose version am I using? Because I think one of the grand challenges of medicine right now, especially for those of us in primary care, is that we are trying to fit very different humans into very specific boxes. And the reality is, those boxes were not designed as a one-size-fits-all. And when we don't fit, most of us assume that there is something wrong with us. And we make this assumption instead of questioning the box. So today, I want to unpack the employed model and external metrics, what our trainees are actually seeing, why this actually contradicts everything that we know from education, why this makes innovation feel so hard right now, and what leadership actually looks like in this moment. So let's start by unpacking that structural shift, the shift to employment and external metrics. Now, more and more physicians are employed. And so that means that we are seeing fewer physicians in independent practice. That also means that ownership is much less visible to those who are entering medicine. And autonomy just looks different. And let's be real here. I am not romanticizing private practice. It is not something that I've ever done. And private practice has its own stressors, its own risks, and of course, its own financial instability. But what has undeniably shifted is this: we are seeing more individuals who are employed. And when you are employed, you are almost always being measured against someone else's metrics. It might be RVUs. It might be access targets. It might be throughput. It might be quality dashboards or panel size. There's also patient satisfaction percentiles and template optimization and time to third next available. And in reality, most likely all of those things. And now those are not all inherently bad things, but they also are not neutral. Those items reflect the priorities of the institution. They reflect the revenue models, the operational efficiency, and even the population health benchmarks. And nowhere in there, though, did we hear relational depth or thoughtful complexity or teaching and education in the room or impact on our communities or creative problem solving or boundary integrity. And so what happens is this: when you're working in these systems, you start calibrating your worth to the numbers that were never designed to capture your full contribution. And for those who are in training right now, this might be all that they see. They see the attendings who are rushing. They see the people who are apologizing for being behind. They see the dashboards that are posted publicly. And they see the productivity compared. Our learners aren't necessarily seeing the physician who built a niche practice that brought them joy, or the educator who was able to completely redesign the curriculum, or the doctor who moved to part-time and was able to implement other strategies and was able to thrive. They might not see that hybrid leader who is doing clinical work plus innovation and getting to find their purpose in that innovation. They might not see the creative who is able to build something new. They probably aren't seeing any of those things unless they go looking for it. And let's be real, most trainees are too busy surviving to go looking for that. And so what does that mean? Well, it means that the implicit message becomes that this is what success looks like. Make sure you hit your numbers. Make sure you keep your head down. Don't make waves. Be efficient and be grateful that you have a job. And what if that model doesn't fit your personality, your strengths, the stage of your life, and importantly, your values? Well, unfortunately, the response might be to assume that you are weak or slow or not cut out for it. And I'm not talking about what the supervisors think. I'm talking about what the individual thinks about themselves. And this is all thinking instead of recognizing that it might simply be that they don't fit the mold. So, as an educator and as a leader, I know that people are different. We all know that people are different, except for when we don't. And this is something that I have to say I find intellectually inconsistent. In education, we absolutely understand individual differences. Especially recently, we teach growth mindset and differentiated instruction and strength-based feedback. We talk about adult learning theory and self-determination theory. We talk about autonomy and competence and relatedness. As educators, we say that it is important to meet learners where they are, to recognize their differing strengths, and importantly, to value diverse perspectives. We understand that we have to teach things differently because there are some learners who are verbal processors, yet others who are visual. We have some who are system thinkers and some who are relational. We have some who really need that reflection time and others who thrive in debate. Nowhere in there did I say that we expect uniformity in learning. And yet, in healthcare performance, we absolutely expect uniformity in output. We expect the same clinic structure, the same productivity expectation, the same toleration for night call, the same leadership style, the same academic trajectory, the same research model, and even the same definition of ambition. But physicians and others in healthcare are most certainly not identical widgets. Some of you are visionaries. Some of you are builders. Some of you are deeply relational. Some of you are operational geniuses. Some are policy-minded. Some of you are community-focused. Some of you are teachers at heart. And some of you are entrepreneurs. Some of you, like me, are introverts who do your best thinking quietly. And some of you are energizers who thrive on collaboration. Trying to force all of that into one rigid productivity template, of course it creates friction. And of course it creates burnout. And here is the part that we don't talk about enough. When our systems only visibly reward one version of success, that means the diversity of thought shrinks. Not because people disappear, but because they stop showing that part of themselves. They stop showing up as their authentic selves. Instead, they adapt, they comply, they quiet their ideas, they stop pitching, they stop proposing, and they stop imagining. And you know what? That means that medicine becomes narrower. So many of us know that we are in a moment where healthcare desperately needs innovation. We need new care models. We need team redesign. We need workflow transformation and technology integration that actually works. We need burnout mitigation strategies, creative scheduling, and community partnerships. We need all of this to ensure sustainability in medicine. And yet, it is rare to see innovation fit neatly into quarterly metrics. New ideas are messy. They are inefficient at first. They require experimentation, and they require tolerance for imperfection. But many systems, they are highly regimented. And regimented systems, well, they reward predictability. So researchers might feel constrained because if an idea isn't immediately revenue generating, then it's harder to justify. Clinicians hesitate to pilot new workflows because it just might affect productivity. Educators feel pressure to stick to tradition because deviation definitely feels risky. And culturally, we are also at a tipping point. Many in medicine are no longer willing to unquestioningly accept nights and weekends indefinitely, the constant availability, and the chronic overextension, and all for good reason. And instead of asking what needs to change structurally, we sometimes label that discomfort as a lack of resilience. But what if it's not fragility? What if that truly is evolution? Every profession evolves, and we in medicine must too. But that evolution, it requires people who are willing to test the edges. So, how do we do this? How do we actually move forward? Not theoretically, not philosophically, but practically. First, someone has to be willing to stretch. That stretch might mean proposing a different clinic model, requesting flexible FTE structures, creatively combining roles, being willing to start pilot projects, or building something small on the side. It might be saying no and holding a boundary against something that doesn't align. And it might be saying yes to something that's unconventional, even when they haven't seen others do it before. And here is the important part and why we are talking about this right now. It also requires that leaders inside the system are willing to support that stretch. Because innovation without support feels dangerous. And so if you are in leadership, I want you to ask yourself, am I rewarding only conformity? Or am I creating psychological safety for experimentation? Do my trainees see only one path? Or do they see options? Do I model boundaries? Or do I model martyrdom? Because the trainees are not listening to what we say. They are watching what we do and what we normalize. And modeling does not require perfection. It requires transparency. You can absolutely say, I tried this and I didn't work. Or I negotiated for this. Or I adjusted my FTE. I said no to that committee. I redesigned my clinic template. Or I struggled and I recalibrated. That gives the people who are watching their own permission. And here is another truth. If you overthink innovation, you are going to talk yourself out of it. That overthinking, it pulls you back to safety, back to the box, back to predictability. Sometimes you have to test it before you are fully confident that it'll work. That doesn't mean be reckless. It means be iterative. Small experiments, small pivots, small redesigns. That is how we get systems to change. Not always with one dramatic overhaul, but with the accumulated micro innovations. And so I want to bring this back to you. When you feel behind, when you feel like you're not enough, when you feel like everyone else is managing better, I want you to pause and I want you to ask yourself, whose version of success am I measuring myself against? Is it my version of success? Or is it the loudest version of success in the room? Was this metric designed to reflect my strengths? Or am I contorting myself to fit it? Now, if the answer is that you're contorting, that doesn't mean that you have to quit tomorrow. And it doesn't have to mean that you burn it all down. But it might mean that you redesign something small, that you ask a question, that you start a conversation, that you become willing to pilot a change, that you seek out a different model, or that you model something different for someone behind you. Medicine as a system and a culture will not evolve if everyone stays inside one narrow definition of success. And never forget that the next generation is watching. If this episode resonated, I want you to share it with a colleague or send it to a trainee that's been asking questions. Start a conversation in your department. And if you are personally feeling like the box that you are in no longer fits, then know that is exactly the kind of work that I can do. And please reach out. Because success should not require self-erasure. Because success should not require self-erasure. And medicine needs physicians and other healthcare workers who are fully, authentically themselves, not compressed versions of others. I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you for listening to The Hidden Load. If today's conversation spoke to you, I would love for you to share it with a colleague who might need to hear it too. It's one of the simplest ways we can start shifting the culture of medicine together. And remember, your time spent reflecting here matters. You can earn free CME or CE credits for listening to today's episode through the Pinnacle app. You'll find that link in the show notes. If you are looking for one-on-one coaching support or want to dive deeper into the resources we discussed today, let's connect. You can find information on how to reach me in the show notes. And don't forget to hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And leave me a rating so that others can find me too. And take care of yourself because you deserve to be held up too. And I'll see you next time.